do agree with you about the current right
What's
wingers.
important? What's sacred will emerge.
The reactionary right is definitely not the solution.
I'm glad that you're beginning to take up that kind of Metzger-like line. That
the reactionary right is not the solution.
Very fruitful.
The problem of like Europeans, and also this knee-jerk kind of reactionary thing, like to new solutions and to persisting problems that may.
And then they want to go back to anachronistic traditions and all this stupid shit. Yeah.
That might not be the way for Europeans. Although I do respect and like, the traditions and the traditional.
Some traditions are worth keeping. That's what white postmodernity is supposed to do. It's supposed to sort out the wheat from the chaff. Some traditions are conducive to maintaining our inherited forms and ways, and some are not. And some modernistic advances are beneficial, while others run roughshod in their universalistic and experimental nonsense.
You've gotten better at this, Daniel. You've gotten better at explaining these points.
Yeah, I have. With
I remember
practice,
when you used to stumble all over the place.
Yeah, I'm taking my vitamins and not drinking as much, and also getting better practice. So yeah, I am a little bit better.
Claire calls trying to get you on her stream.
She wants to be a star. She wants to,
Yeah, she wants to be an e-celeb. That's her thing.
Ignis, I'm not going to fight you tonight on the Apolloism thing, but next time I stream, remind me.
You should debate him on the Killing Fields.
That's a joke, isn't it? Fucking Richard Spencer.
You should debate him on seriously on the Killing Fields about a pot.
Yes, I actually want to debate some Apollo people. If anybody knows the Apollo guys, I will fight you.
Let's do it.
You insulted my Italian god, man.
Let's do it. Ignis, would you be down to like debate on the Killing Fields? Let's do it. Let's
I mean, does he take the stance that like
got something against Apollo,
invented
man?
Odin?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Ignis versus Norvin on the Killing Fields. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get it. Let's hype it. Let's get it going. Apparently he wants to do it. He's hyped.
Okay, cool. Killing Fields.
So there we go.
Okay, so what time next weekend? It's a stream that can go on as long as necessary. But is Saturday, Sunday better for you? I think Sundays are pretty good, right? Like this time next Sunday, 9 like
Saturdays, Sundays are cool for me at least.
Sunday morning, say about 10 o'clock Central. About 9 o'clock Central European time is 12 o'clock California time. Is that okay for you, Norm? Next Sunday, Saturday night, Norvin.
Yeah, that sounds good for me.
Okay, and it seems like it's okay for for Patrick. He's pretty sharp right now. It doesn't sound tired. And that should be good for Snorkel Blog.
Even if I don't show up, I'm pretty sure Norvin will carry the stream. So
and if you can't make it next weekend, there will be one soon after. So, and then we'll be able to get this DNA Nations project going because it's not at odds with what anybody wants. I think that Orion is something that we can all get on board with. Like I was saying to Norvin last time I spoke with him, I even like when Metzger used to say your race is your religion. I thought that was a good one too. But anyway, maybe that's going.
That was pretty standard. That's pretty standard for the time, right?
Yeah, and I thought it was good. But so
I like Metzger. He had his limitations, but I like him.
Yeah, he had his limitations. He wasn't. He was self-educated. He was.
Why is Claire referring to herself in third person?
Because she's trying to promote herself. She's ridiculous.
Claire Cole has
I don't agree with you that she's crazy, but
she's mentally ill. Daniel,
Daniel, why do you think people are not so receptive to her ideas? I
think she does have one adherent to secular Coranism. She has one.
Like one dedicated
This
person.
Muslim,
Like
this
what?
white Muslim lady from Southern California.
Oh man, really?
Yeah.
Is she from? Is she from like San Francisco?
No, Southern California.
Oh,
She's not.
Southern California.
She's
Is she a former hippie? Like how old is she? She's
no,
got to be a
she's just
boomer.
she's distraught about the
Oh, is she a Sufi? What
Mexican
kind of
immigration.
Muslim are?
I don't know. I talked to her very briefly once. And she was absurd. On that note,
I'm surprised Claire Call doesn't have her own little kind of thing on Kiwi Farms. I'm really shocked she doesn't have
well,
that.
it's so ridiculous that you have to wonder if maybe if it's just like she was told, promote this and troll the WN sphere with this stuff because it doesn't make any sense otherwise. That she seems to me she was given this assignment to try to.
By the way, does Con Ops frequent your stream as well?
Not that I know of. No, not anymore.
He used to always recommend you for like other people's streams. I used to see him recommending you for other people's streams.
Huh. Well, that's okay. I mean, Claire recommends me too, but I think it's I don't know why they're doing that. It's sort of like indirect strategy to promote themselves. Anyway, so like I said, I have to save a little bit of StreamYard time so that we can have a stream next weekend. I thank you both very much for coming, Patrick and Norvin. A pleasure, and hopefully talk to you next weekend, or maybe even sooner.
Yeah, I'll talk to you next weekend. What's Claire Call's channel?
I think it's one's called Claire Call, one's called hard.
Matt, we should go over there.
Why? I don't want to go over there. Why do you want to go over there, Norvin? Well, you might as well just stream on your own. I don't want to give her any kind of like shine. Honestly, I don't want to give her stream any kind of credence.
I really yeah.
I
feel like I'm validating like that stream if I make an appearance on there. It's like usually, and I don't go there if I don't like somebody.
I'm not signed. I'm
principled on that.
I'm not signed up to her stream.
I know you'll go on anybody's stream, Norvin, but I ain't gonna do that. I'm not going on Claire Call's stream.
Okay, so guys, thanks again, and
thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Bye for now.
Bye.
Well, here I am with a stream on Daniel's having just finished. They say they won't be coming, but he's got pretty good views. 11 people watching now. It has just ended. I've offered to host a continuation stream for those who want to discuss further the subjects of, I think it was, let's have a look, it was the caste system, the JQ. Well, actually, Patrick Bateman was saying that he didn't want to discuss the JQ, and maybe he's going straight. He's watching his P's and Q's. He wants some kind of respectability, and obviously they've got a lot of issues they need to discuss. I'm quite good at remaining in the background. In fact, actually in my own streams I usually prefer to post in the chat rather than do the talking and let my guests talk their issues through. But it's good that I've got 3 concurrent viewers. Obviously, if they did come over, it would get more viewers, more people would know about my tertiary YouTube channel, because I can't Well, I could use my 2 channels, but I've got 2 strikes each, and I might as well wait for it to clear up and gain more subscribers on this channel. And I think if you play your cards right, if you don't stream after you've got 2 strikes and you start use your other channel that you haven't got 2 strikes on, you can maintain a YouTube presence if you mind your P's and Q's. I have tried Odyssey, but it is like Siberia, and you get a totally different kind of audience, subscribers, and it's a fiddly multi-click process to stream on Odyssey, and yeah, it's possible. It's just that it's not so convenient on StreamYard. I guess we are being really lazy, talking about the matter of a few clicks just to do that, but maybe you just don't feel it's worthwhile if hardly anybody comes to hate watch you. Now, going back to what was being discussed, I'll go through the subjects discussed. So basically, Daniel started a stream by... Oh, I can't even scroll back beyond the first hour. I can't remember what he's complaining about. Oh yes, he was talking about how he isn't a Nazi, how he denounces Nazis and how he dissociates himself from them and thinks he's got the perfect position on being a peaceful anti-Semite while saying all he needs to say about the Jews. So that is basically his position. And then we were going to discuss Shinzo Abe for a bit, and then Norvin and Patrick hopped on and talked about their stuff. They discussed the Hindu caste system, but not in any great detail. So they were basically talking about other characters, and nothing substantial. Yeah, and they were talking about me. And they ended by talking about kiwi farms and whether I should be on there or not. I just don't think I'm as mad and silly enough to be featured on kiwi farms. And they said it's because I'm not famous enough. I think I have been considered an internet celebrity. I know I'm being suppressed. I know mainstream media are not supposed to talk about me. Now I've finished talking about Daniel's stream. What can I say about other stuff that's been going on in the world? There's not really all that much to say about the stupid leadership election for the next British Prime Minister. It is demoralising and humiliating, and of course it has been noted that... Actually, I don't know how many leadership contenders there are, but there's a brown woman and 3 brown men, I believe. One Hindu and one Hindu man being Rishi Sunak, one Iraqi being Nadeem Zahawi, and the third one would be... I've forgotten. leadership. Formal candidates joined the field Conservatives, vying to be Britain's Prime Minister. So we have officially Tom Tugendhat, who is gay, Suella Braverman, who is, well, female, who is currently Attorney General. Steve Aker, actually quite a nice guy, but not alpha male. There's Sajid Javid. Who is from a Muslim background. He has resigned a few times, which suggests that he has some principles. There's Liz Truss, who nobody likes and who wants to start the Third World War. Rishi Sunak. Who else? Ben Wallace is Defence Secretary. I don't know that much about him. Penny Mordaunt, she's a leaver. Nadim Zahawi, he's, well, cunning and sinister. Jeremy Hunt, a bit bitter. And there are 3 outside contenders called Grant. Well, one of them is Grant Shapps, who's Jewish. Kemi Badenoch, I've never even heard of before. Robert Buckland is the Welsh Secretary. I don't really care. I have a feeling that Nadim Zahawi will win because he's cunning and probably being placed by the deep state. And I don't know who the other sucker is watching. Could be Jay. So now, moving on, what would you like me to discuss? Just post a topic and I will do my best to discuss it. Now, what would I have said if I were on my own, not being reactive to Daniel's stream? What would I be talking about? Actually, nothing much. I would have talked about Shinzo Abe, I guess. I'll just finish what I was going to say to Daniel. I posted a link to him in the private chat about how Abe would have provoked China by allowing Japan to be a US missile base. And that was the gist of the Guardian article, really saying that the assassin of Shinzo Abe, probably prevented the Third World War, or this attempt at starting the Third World War. I can read that article to you. I closed the window, but I can easily find it. It's a Guardian article, so, it's not some fringe media outlet. I know he was popular and long-standing, but mind you, I know somebody who has was known to dislike him when he was alive, and to now regard him as some kind of fallen hero now that he has been assassinated. So this is an old article, 4 months old in fact, and it's in The Guardian, and it says, China rattled by calls for Japan to host US nuclear weapons. And I will post it in the chat for you. And I guess I should tweet the stream and share on Facebook the stream before I carry on. And maybe I should open my Hangouts. And maybe I should open my Facebook. Is there too much background noise? I think there might be, but I do need the window open really. I might share this link with people I know to be active on Facebook. And now I will read this Guardian article about Shinzo Abe saying China rattled by calls for Japan to host US nuclear weapons. Influential former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called for Tokyo to consider hosting US nuclear weapons in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Bad idea if you're Japanese. China has reacted angrily to calls by Japan's influential former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for Tokyo to consider hosting US nuclear weapons in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and rising concern over Chinese aggression towards Taiwan. Abe, who presided over record defense budgets before resigning in 2020, said Japan should cast off taboos surrounding its possession of nuclear weapons following the outbreak of war in Europe. In NATO, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands and Italy take part in nuclear sharing, hosting American nuclear weapons, Abe said in a TV interview, according to Nikkei Asia. We need to understand how security is maintained around the world and not consider it taboo to have an open discussion. We should firmly consider various options and when we talk about how we can protect Japan and the lives of its people in this reality. Japan, the only country to have been attacked with nuclear weapons in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is part of the US nuclear umbrella, but has for decades adhered to the three non-nuclear principles that it will not produce or possess nuclear weapons or allow them on its territory. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida quickly rejected Abe's call for a debate on the nuclear sharing option. It is unacceptable given our country's stance of maintaining the three non-nuclear principles. Kishida, who represents a constituency in Hiroshima, told MPs this week. Wang Wenbin, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman, told reporters in Beijing, Japanese politicians have frequently spread fallacies related to Taiwan and even blatantly made false remarks that violate the nation's three non-nuclear principles. We strongly ask Japan to deeply reflect on its history. Wang added and warned Tokyo to be cautious in words and deeds on the Taiwan issue to stop provoking trouble. Under Abe, a conservative whose lifelong political ambition is to revise Japan's pacifist constitution, said any conflict involving China and Taiwan would also constitute an emergency for Japan. He called on the US to end its ambiguity on the defense of Taiwan, which China regards as a renegade province, noting that the island is just 110 kilometers from Yonaguni, Japan's westernmost inhabited island. The US takes a strategy of ambiguity, meaning it may or may not intervene militarily if Taiwan is attacked. Abe said, by showing it may intervene, it keeps China in check. But by leaving open the possibility that it may not intervene, it makes sure that the Taiwanese forces for independence do not get out of control. Abe, leader of the biggest faction in Kishida's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, has made several hawkish interventions on security policy that enjoy support inside the party, but could provoke a backlash among voters nervous about Japan's potential involvement in regional conflicts. China's state-run tabloid Global Times accused Abe of attempting to unlock Japanese militarism. It is not only ironic, but also a huge real risk that a group of people in the only country in the world that was bombed by atomic bombs would call for an invitation to the culprit to deploy nuclear weapons in their own history, it said in an editorial. Yes, it is ironic indeed that everyone who is operating under the rules of liberal democracy appears to have a hole in their head. Hello to concurrent viewers. Thank you for coming. I don't really know how long I can keep this up because I actually didn't have anything much to say. Should I, in my scraping of the barrel, find people to join me, or should I just close the stream? What do you think, people? Oh, I've forgotten. I haven't opened my Hangout. My Hangouts page. So weird stuff is going on in Japan. I'll have to close the window. So let's read again what Global Times said about Japanese behaviour. China's state-run tabloid Global Times accused Abe of attempting to unlock Japanese militarism. It is not only ironic, but also a huge real risk that a group of people in the only country in the world that was bombed by atomic bombs would call for an invitation to the culprit, i.e. the country that bombed Japan, to deploy nuclear weapons in their own country, it said in an editorial. So, under Abe, the Japanese have gone mad. But not quite, because when he proposed that nuclear weapons should be allowed, US missiles, US nuclear, when he proposed that nuclear missiles should be sighted on Japanese soil, the current Prime Minister, Fumio Kishida, rejected this proposal and basically said it is not up for discussion, it's so ridiculous, we're not going to do it. And Kishida represents a constituency in Hiroshima. So something weird is happening in Japan, and it's not good. When national leaders don't think in the national interest, are they evil? Are they stupid? Are they insane? And I was saying yesterday in a stream that it doesn't matter. It's still wrong. And what is causing this moral malaise, this inability of national leaders all over the world operating representative democracy to govern in the national interest? So if you've been paying attention to this Guardian article, you will know that Abe's party is called the Liberal Democrat Party. Let me just check, maybe I got it wrong, but that's right. Abe, leader of the biggest faction in Kishida's ruling Liberal Democratic Party. So within the Liberal Democratic Party, there is a faction. Liberal democracy, is it a Japanese thing? Obviously it was imposed on them. We know that, in the olden days when you won a war, you basically took over, you exacted tribute, but in warfare in the 21st century, it's ideological. So basically, if you lose a war to the Americans, the Allies, you're basically forced to adopt democracy. You have no choice. And it is through democracy that they control you with their Western imperialism. And I guess that worked for a bit until the Americans themselves, through Trump, reject the imperium of the West, i.e. their own imperium. And this is where the trouble starts. And that explains the virulence with which its dissenters are denounced. They have kind of pre-labeled these people to be domestic terrorists, white supremacists, extremists, radicals, all these names to explain the trouble ahead. And they already know that there are people who seriously object to their their imperialism. And it's understandable that, obviously the people you conquer would react in a violent way to being conquered by you, and they will commit acts of terrorism and sabotage. And it is only to be expected that you will get insurrection and rebellion from conquered peoples who haven't quite accepted their defeat and subjugation. But if your own people don't agree with your imperial agenda because they can't see anything in it for them, then you are in trouble. And this is basically what Trump represented to Westerners. I thought I sent you the link, Sam. I thought I did. Oh, I sent it to Vincent Bruno. Silly me. It is now sent. Sam should be arriving presently. Hi, Sam.
Hey there, Claire. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Intrigued by the news. Yeah, you heard about that big cyber attack. It was officially stated to be a cyber attack. People were unclear whether it was or wasn't in Canada. It took out the banks of 10 million Canadians that didn't have access to their banks or ATMs. It was, and they're claiming they can trace it back to Russia. So it's begun. Whether it's a real cyber attack or a false flag, operation that they ran, initial sort of beta tests. It was a massive one that took down 10 million accounts of 10 million Canadians, and no access to ATMs countrywide. And it happened to Wells Fargo also last week. There was a blackout of Wells Fargo in the Southwest and Western states. Mm-hmm. There's a pattern for it, and it sounded a lot like it was hokey, and it was a paranoid fear porn and everything. And I mentioned this to coworkers, when I was still working at where I was working, my former place of employment, and they looked at me like I was crazy. I told them cyber attacks will be used to take down the banking systems, and it's most likely going to be a false flag run by the Western cabal of bankers, the global cabal of the ones running the banking systems of the majority of the world's countries, and it's all interconnected. And so now that's why the BRICS are forming an independent, they already formed their own SWIFT system, independent, it's called CHIPS, independent of the Western SWIFT system. Mm-hmm. They have their own exchange of, currencies. They are totally detaching themselves from the Western financial systems. And they know that the Western financial systems will commit hara-kiri, suicide, and they'll blame them. They'll most likely blame the Russians, because the Russians have been employing cyber attacks as a means of, asymmetrical warfare. So they are actually using that tool. But knowing that, the Western cabal Satanists will use the excuse of Russian cyber attacks to take down their own banking systems under their control demolition, just the same as 9/11 was a controlled demolition, blaming Muslim fanatic, fundamentalists of Saudi Arabia, Wahhabists, and everything, and it was all a scam. It was not a scam. It actually ran the operation, took down the towers, but it was a false flag. So
who ran that false flag, though?
It was several countries. It had primarily the CIA and fucking Dick Cheney and George Bush Jr. and MI6. And I spoke to Claire about this, and Mossad had a hand in it as well, including the Pakis, including the Austrians, including whoever. It was several intelligence agencies, not just one. The Saudis were primarily involved, and that when Trump made the allusion that the Saudis had some culpability, and also Rudy Giuliani didn't want to accept cash money from one of the princes of Saudi Arabia, accusing them of having a direct hand in sponsoring these people. But in truth, they were also just sort of distractions, sort of not distractions, deceptions, or it's sort of like a deflection from what had really happened. These people, they were not good pilots. All these Saudi nationals that were training all around the country, they were terrible pilots. That was the front story that would be used later on while the investigations would be done to lend it legitimacy that it was an actual organic terrorist attack. It was all planned ahead in advance. But these people didn't fly those planes, and those planes weren't commercial airliners. They were military jets that were drones that were rigged to be flown remotely. And the maneuvers and the speed in which they flew, no pilot had the skills to do that. And it was proven in the documentary Loose Change that all pilots, all commercial airline pilots, and even jet fighter pilots said that those maneuvers would have caused high-speed stalls, and those jets had to be modified to be able to pull off those maneuvers, and those are not commercial airliners. And everybody who saw those jets close up saw that it was a military jet. They were gray-colored jets with no identification, lettering, or no tags on them. They were kind of naked, just painted gray, and and also the Pentagon. Everybody and his mother and his grandmother knew that was a missile, that was a cruise missile, and all the excuses they gave of the jet disintegrating as upon impact with the Pentagon at low altitude, a concrete building. Horse shit. They only found one turbine jet, and it belonged to a Russian submarine cruise missile. All right, the Kursk that went down. I did the research, and it's not far fetched. It's actually that's why all the video footage was confiscated, and there was plenty of surveillance footage. It was all confiscated. The whole entirety of the 9/11 false flag attack was meant to be trauma-based conditioning. As a high school, I wasn't in high school, but I was straight out of the military. I was still straight out of the military. I was 2001, right? So I was like at the age of 26, 27. It was after I finished with the U.S. Army. I came back to New York. I was a cabbie. I was traumatized. I was super traumatized, and I believed what they told us for a good long while, a few good months, until all the questions started arising about Building 7. Also, the BBC reporting on Building 7, on the female reporter somewhere in Midtown in one of the skyscrapers with downtown behind her, on her left shoulder, on her right shoulder. You saw Building 7 standing while she's reporting that it had collapsed. And it was earlier in the day, and it only collapsed way later in the late afternoon. And she had already reported that it had collapsed, and she wasn't the only one. So they were, they weren't fully coordinated, and the firefighters knew that there were explosives in all of the buildings, including Building 7, and they even said it. One of the fire commissioners, when reporters approached them, they said, "Move away! We're pulling it. It's coming down. We're taking the building down. It's coming down." How did they know? It was only peripheral fires, they say, in the offices. That wouldn't take down a skyscraper. It was rigged for demolition. And it was just so inconsistent, all the lies they said. But because of the mainstream media, and because of the trauma, and because of the shock of it, a majority of everyone, both in the United States and around the world, it swallowed the line, swallowed the bull. And it didn't take long. It took, after the trauma had blown over, and people kind of collected their thoughts about it, and then engineers got together, and then all the eyewitnesses they said none of it makes sense, and it's all ridiculous. The storylines and that they're telling us, just similar to very similar to the Wu flu. I mean, this is on YouTube. Are we on Odyssey or YouTube, Claire? Hello, are you there? Vincent, is this on YouTube or Odyssey?
I don't know.
Anyway, so I won't be too specific about it, but a big, major psychological operation. We all know what I'm referring to. Trauma, coordination amongst the corporate mainstream media regarding the narrative and the talking points and the stories.
Well, on YouTube.
We're on YouTube. Okay, so I spared you a strike. I didn't refer to the forbidden, verboten subjects that we're not supposed to talk about.
Thank you.
But everybody knows. It's just so, plain and simple to understand now that it's just trauma-based conditioning. The CIA and all the intelligence agencies are adept at it. They've perfected this. They do behavioral psychology on their own people and on other people. That's what that's what their job is. It's not working anymore because we're living in the information age, and they can't cover all of the bases. The fact that Israeli Mossad agents were there and were documenting it and were involved and were aware of it, and they knew that it was going to happen. It was just, one of many, incidents that proved to everyone that this was a premeditated event, because a lot of people in those buildings, a lot of the security people in those buildings, one of the top security, managers there had a feeling and said that it was coming, and he stayed there and he went down with the buildings. But a lot of people got advance notice not to arrive to work on that day, and they were of all races and backgrounds and all skin colors and all religions. It wasn't just the Jews. Top government officials notified their family members to not be in the city, to not be anywhere around downtown, to not go into those buildings, and that's documented. All right, so it's just one huge freaking farce, and the documentary Loose Change is proof of how premeditated and engineered and planned out the whole thing was. And it was beta tested also by the Hamas terrorists that blew up a van in the garage in the underground parking in an attempt to destabilize the columns of the building. They were foolishly. I don't know if that was just a prep, if that was just psychological preparation, beta testing, implanting into the minds of the public that the towers are targets, just preparing them slowly. Just the same as these cyber attacks are now beta tests, just kind of seeding the idea that the banking systems will be taken down by cyber attacks. It's very simple. This is what's going on, and that's my update. There's a lot more going on, but it could be too overwhelming.
Vincent, can you remember what you were doing on 9/11?
I was in school on 9/11. I remember when they announced it in class.
Yeah, well, all the accusations of false flags and government inside job and deep state and intelligence agencies working in cooperation with one another is not far-fetched at all. It is 100% not just believable but provable. They also managed to smuggle out or steal or take all the gold from the underground vaults of the World Trade Center while the buildings were still up, while the buildings were being evacuated. A lot of there were gold bank reserves there in the towers. They were all taken by trucks, and there were also eyewitnesses to underground tunnels of that happening. Security people, police, firemen, they saw that happening. And and proof of the thermite, of the steel being melted, turned into molten steel. That was all the rescue people and the firefighters saw that when they were digging through the rubble, all the pools of molten steel. The thermite was still active days after the buildings came down. And that was very suspicious on its face. So many things were, but it could not have been exclusively Israelis and the Mossad. It was insiders, and it required also the U.S. Military to stand down because the NORAD was ordered to stand down. Jets the F-16 jets that were defending America's airspace were tasked to way off farther locations away from the tri-state area and away from this downtown. So even if they could have organically reacted, they were way too far away. They made sure that nobody could react, that the airspace above New York was completely undefended. But these jets were not even airliners; they were U.S. military jets. So the Israelis did not pull all of that off on their own. The Mossad didn't pull all of that off on its own. And you had that, what's his name? Another Steen fucker. Sunstein or the fucker that bought the whole entire World Trade Center complex.
Larry Goldstein or something. Larry
Sunstein, something like that.
Larry Silverstein. His first name is
Silverstein.
Yeah, Larry Silverstein.
And remember what he said? We decided to pull it, and he made this gesture, pull it, and he took out a huge multi-billion-dollar insurance policy on those buildings, having leased them for like 100 years, just a year prior. And it was all very suspicious on its face. And even Giuliani, it smelled fishy. Everybody, in New York, the authorities were very fishy. They were just not the firefighters, not the people on the ground, but the people in charge. They just had a suspicious way about them. They just had a suspicious vibe going on. And I think Trump knew from the beginning that it was a false flag, and he didn't say anything about it. Yeah, I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, my brother could have been killed. I didn't get the insider warning. My brother didn't get the insider warning. I could have been in downtown driving my cab over there, and I could have been killed by it. Luckily, I finished my night shift and I was sleeping in the morning. And my brother was the one who woke me up and told me that, open the TV. You won't believe your eyes. And I'm looking at all of this with my own eyes. He was in the downtown area. He saw the people, leaping to their deaths with the towers on fire, in flames. That was very traumatizing. And he walked all the way back home from downtown all the way back home to Brooklyn. There was no transportation, no buses, no trains. Everybody was on foot. And it was traumatizing, and it was hard to swallow afterwards also, because the Iranians had made the claim that it was an inside job, and nobody trusts the Iranians. The Iranians that same day, that same week, were making the accusations of it being a false flag, because their intelligence agents were keeping tabs on this operation. So they came out and said that it was an inside job, a false flag. But obviously, nobody's going to listen to them. They're a bunch of fucking fanatic terrorists and crazies, and they always like to exaggerate things and make up shit and tell false, report false news and fake news. It's like I'm not legitimizing them, but they were actually correct. And at the time, we were all pissed off. I was pissed off. All those fucking Arab terrorists. Oh, those fucking Arab terrorists. They got everybody fired up because they needed a war. They needed their Afghan war. They needed their Iraq war. They needed, a military-industrial complex profiteering. They needed, to have dark pools of money to launder through the Western banking system to keep the Western banks liquid. That's what they did with the opium trade out of Afghanistan, with the heroin. Obviously, they needed to get control of Saddam and dethrone him and get him out of the way, because he was challenging the petrodollar. So the Saudis and the British had a real vested interest in getting rid of Saddam. Israel went along for the ride. The Mossad tagged along for the ride because it suited our interests to get rid of Saddam, because he was firing missiles, scuds at us all the time. And America's direct involvement in war in the Middle East was more of a distraction for the world to focus their attention on, a Middle East war between the West and, the Arab world or the Iranians or whoever, Arab terrorists. And the limelight gets taken off of us, and the scrutiny gets taken off of us, and we can breathe more freely from the fucking Euro trash and American cocksucking left, from scrutinizing us over, the fucking Palestinians. So it suited our interests. And, I could see why Israeli Mossad lent a hand to that false flag operation. We were being bus bombed, and we were being terrorized by suicide bombers daily. That was a period where we didn't have the separation wall, separation fence, and it suited our interest to have this distraction. We get used as a distraction. We got used as a distraction by the Western media as a sort of like an entertaining story, infotainment, or like, oh, it's biblical, the conflict, the Middle East conflict, the Arabs and the Jews. When will they ever get it together? They will never. They've been fighting forever, and they just don't know how to make peace with one another. And so we got tired of that crap, and we said, well, let them fucking stew in their own shit, with their own fucking war with the Arabs. All right, so that's a sweet revenge or a sweet distraction, a sweet deflection. Not to say that I'm that much of an asshole and that cold and callous about deaths, civilian deaths, and military. The personnel, the soldiers, all the casualties, all the horror of it, the expenditures, the waste, and all that. But we were being put in that same place with sort of like nonchalant indifference coming from the world, and that had happened also in the Munich Olympics. In the Munich Olympics, what was it, 1973? In the Olympic Village, while our athletes were being held hostage in their rooms, and some were actually executed. The rest of the athletes in the Olympic Village were playing fucking ping pong, were swimming in the pool in Germany, in Munich, in the Olympic Village, and that whole entire drama was going on in the background, and they were totally indifferent and callous, and they didn't stop their daily routines. So that's how cold the world is. That's how callous. And so if you're gonna, that's the way you're gonna treat us, we'll treat you in kind. All right. So Israel was being used for about 20 years with the Intifada as a distraction, as a fodder for the media to focus all the world, their viewers' attention on. It's entertaining. It's the drama, the conflict. Ooh, it's like it's just the same as the wars that CNN used to market when the wars started. It's all infotainment, and they push it, and they dramatize it, and they romanticize it. Oh, look at this plane! We have all the specs on this plane. We have all the specs on this missile system. And look at this, and they're selling the fucking military equipment to the public as though it's like. Some sort of a fucking game, some sort of fucking cartoon, some sort of fucking movie. So, the dumbed down public just ate it up. They weren't critical of it. They weren't, nauseated and disgusted by it. But now they are, because of all the unjust wars and the real and everything having been exposed, and so many examples from the past. The Vietnam War having been the same exact damn thing. Profiteering, and not just military-industrial complex profiteering, but CIA profiteering from the heroin, from the opium trade that they ran out of Laos and Cambodia, and that. So there's all of that. Poor Rambo, poor Sylvester Stallone. He gets the short end of the stick. The veteran, the guy that gets screwed up in the head, and he's forever traumatized by what do you call that fucking PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder, and his buddies got blown up, and he was holding his dead body in his body. He has all these memories in his head, and it's like, poor fucking Rambo. And you have those casualties. And in the meantime, the world is cynical. The world could give two shits. They have a short memory. They have short attention spans. They have a short memory span. Whatever. The next thing that talking point, whatever the next entertainment of the whatever's happening around. Now we could talk about Sri Lanka. That's another thing now that's happening, that's taking the world's attention. They've gone into hyperinflation. They overthrew their president. There's a coup over there. There's no money. There's no fuel. There's no food. The authorities can't get control of their population. And they're in dire straits, and they're saying that that's the future outlook for the rest of the world. That's a model. That's like exactly. It's like the emerging markets. A lot of the analysts said it would begin in the emerging markets, and there would be a very blatant incidents in countries that would fall apart real quick. And they would be like signs, harbingers for what would arrive to the rest of the world. The supposedly, untouchable Western world, Europe, America, that would never happen in those developed first world countries. But it's on the way. It's bubbling up underneath the surface. But in the West, they won't allow these, organic uprisings and protests and coups like what happened in Sri Lanka. They will try to have a controlled demolition using cyber attacks, using false flags, and using narratives, using the mainstream media, mind control, and brainwashing. And that's what you can expect. And a lot of people are in the know, and they are expecting that. And they can't do anything to stop it. But once it does happen, then you're in a fluid sort of like transitional phase, and that's when power can be grabbed, or power can be confiscated from the lunatics running the asylum. That's when everybody will wake up. That's when the normies will wake up. That's when the NPCs will wake up. That's when they have no more. That's when they will have no more excuses. They heard this from people like me, and many others like me have told them this. They looked at them cross-eyed. They looked at them funny. They looked at them like they're crazy. But it's already in process. I mean, they're running beta tests. You know, what else can you say? I mean, and you see it unraveling around the world. It's not just Sri Lanka. It's what is it? Turkey. What other countries on the verge of hyperinflation? Turkey's experiencing 50% inflation. And if Erdogan wasn't subsidizing the Turkish people with food and fuel, he'd have an uprising on his hands. He'd have a revolt and a coup attempt. Like the one that whoever ran it, I think it was the West, also tried to run it on him several years back, and the Russians protected him, kept him. But now he's crossing the Russians. He had confiscated a Russian ship claiming that it was stealing wheat somewhere in the Bosphorus. He confiscated a Russian ship. Well, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with that guy. One day he's friendly with Putin, next day he's not, next day he's double-crossing him, next day he's shooting down one of his jets, and Putin is still doing deals with him and trying to get him into his sphere, into the BRICS, but Turkey's part of NATO. So they're playing footsie with both sides, whatever. But he's buried himself. They're in a death spiral. They are in a inflationary death spiral in Turkey. They'll eventually reach the level of Sri Lanka if they won't get it under control over there. And they're at Lebanon. Lebanon is exactly in the same boat, and they're being bailed out. But the bailouts won't work forever, and it won't work forever for the supposedly stable Western European countries, specifically Italy and Greece and Spain. It'll all get out before it gets out of hand, before it gets out of control. They will run the major cyber attacks that Klaus Schwab was forecasting last year. In their operations during this exact time last year, exactly around July, they ran what's called Operation Cyber Polygon, doing testing scenarios of cyber attacks, different scenarios of global cyber attacks, and how to respond to them. But these are the exercises they ran on 9/11. The same exact damn exercises that the military intelligence and security were running that same day. All right, and that coincidentally and not so coincidentally, on 7/7 in London, when the buses were bombed, they were running the same exact scenarios. The security services of England in London, MI5 in domestic internal security, they were all running parallel exercises of the exact identical scenarios that actually played out supposedly in real life. So I told this to a British couple when I was in Thailand, and we were having a nice time, about to go snorkeling in some like really beautiful, like majestic emerald beach, and I spoiled their day. I spoiled the girls' day. I told her, look, they ran exercises simulating the exact same scenario of the bus bombings in London on 7/7. Did you know that? And she looked at me like like her jaw dropped, or she looked at me like she was like, what the hell are you saying? A young girl, naive, very naive. And she thought I was crazy, but hey, it's all there on record. They were running exercises on 9/11, simulating the exact same scenarios of planes hitting those buildings. I'm not making that shit up. Go check it out. Look it up. Anyway, so we're in that same stage. The satanic cabal in the West won't allow Western countries to organically fall apart into what had happened in Sri Lanka. They will get involved. They will put their hands into the mix of the mess that they've created. They will try to control the collapse, control control the demolition. It's a slow-moving process, but in fact, because it's been over a decade, 14 or more years, and they've tried several times and failed to actually go ahead with their plans to bamboozle the world, lie to the world again, and now they're trapped with their dicks in their hands, with their pants around their ankles, because everybody knows the information spread. There's too many people that know. Even the fucking NPCs, even the fucking normies, they've heard enough. They've been exposed to this information enough that it begins to make sense to them, especially after the Wufu debacle and all the lies and deceptions of the Wufu debacle and the clot shots. They don't believe what they're being told. There's so very little credibility to the mainstream corporate media now. Only the most lobotomized of the Westerners believe the mainstream media. This goes for Europe and the United States and Israel as well. We have people here that are so sick of our mainstream media, they can't stand them. They call them liars. They call them all sorts of names. They call them trash. It's a phenomenon. Just as much as you were mentioning earlier, Claire, focused towards our mainstream media, or like government mind control, or like what would you call it? Ministries of truth that pretend to be commercial, independent media, outlets, when they're not, when they're hand in hand with the intelligence agencies working to mind control, molest people's minds, keep them under control, brainwash them. So it's the government's hand in hand with the media and the media moguls and the corporations, and they can't hide it anymore. The Tavistock group and the CIA being involved in all about MK Ultra and the Mockingbird media, and their direct hand in navigating what's being told to the American public, or controlling what's being told, especially in wartime, war propaganda. So what else can be said? Their time has come. They're at their end. They cannot reverse any of this. They cannot put the genie back in the bottle. They cannot put the cat back in the bag. And it goes. And again, I with my obsession will say that this didn't start overnight. This kind of a control of people's minds, and controlling the masses, and controlling their beliefs, and controlling their thoughts, goes back all the way to the invention of Jesus and the Gospels. That's like the one of the most most disgusting and long-lasting, infuriating forms of government mind control that there is. And that's why they're brazen, because they got away with it for 2,000 years. They know that the people are vulnerable, they're gullible, that they're easily fooled if they get them into a herd mentality of believing, the lone wolves, or the dark sheep, or the ones that think independently, the ones that go against the wind, go against the stream, always get sort of like shouted down, or they get basically silenced. They can be screaming at the top of their lungs, but they'll be silenced by the stupidity of the masses, by the parroting. The parrot, it was Jim Brewer. I saw it. He did like a good skit stand up, of people being parrots about just falling in line. And yeah, if you saw that. Anyway, I'm going to stop. I'm going to let you have your say. I'm just like rambling here, I don't know if I shocked you by admitting all this stuff, if or you knew it already and you thought that I didn't know it. You thought maybe you could put me on the spot, but maybe I provide a little more details as far as maybe things you didn't know. I don't know. Go ahead, Claire. Go ahead. So have you?
Well, I've heard it a few times. I thought you were talking to Vincent, actually.
Whoever. I mean, was anything I said new to anyone?
Well, I mean, I knew there were two views. Either it really happened and was committed by the people that the media said was committed, or it was a false flag, attack. And whatever it is, it doesn't bode well. And I suppose what I thought was, even if the official narrative were true, it still doesn't make sense, Even if the Arabs attacked, even if the Arabs attacked, Bin Laden did it. Well, obviously there's something wrong with American foreign policy for it to be attacked, because
or domestic security. I mean, the airspace of New York is heavily it's congested airspace, and it's always being monitored, and it should it's very sort of like a important to defend that airspace for security reasons. And the fact that the F-16s that were diverted, that the National Guard or whatever they were, F-16s that do the domestic security for America's airspace, were deliberately diverted. It's just too conspicuous. And Dick Cheney had his legs up, crossed on his desk, being pictured on the phone, talking about what was happening and coordinating all his whatever he was coordinating with the conspirators, the people who had,
I mean, okay, there is a lot of information and there's lots of things you have to prove, and I'm saying, people either believe the official narrative because that's what they want to believe, or can bring themselves to believe, or there is the other that option. But I'm saying, even if you take the official narrative at its face value, it still doesn't justify American foreign policy. All the neocon wars, I mean, attacking Iraq, and then Afghanistan, it didn't work out for the Americans. So even if the whole thing were true, it still doesn't make sense on those terms.
Of course,
I always move away from complicated conspiracy theories because they are hell to prove. Really, you have to tell people all this stuff, and they may not agree, or they can't take it in, or they can't remember, they don't understand what you're saying, and ultimately, it makes
people are dumb because people are fucking sheep.
Exactly,
that they're dumb.
Exactly, but if you dispense with all that information, and it's the same with Christianity. It is idolatry. What else is it but idolatry? And you can win the debate just by saying, prove it's not idolatry. Prove that Jesus is God. What is your evidence?
But it isn't, Claire. It just isn't. Yeah. I'm telling you, it isn't. It's because it's Jesus, and I could be just as simplistic and bottom line with my responses and my answers to you. And Jesus is Jesus, and because he's Jesus, he's not idolatry. He's an exception. You hear me, Claire? You got me?
I know, but you see, the thing is also to approach the right people. There's no point talking to ordinary Christians who don't understand, who aren't, who clued up on the Trinity and all that, and therefore it's really the bishops and the archbishops and the Pope and the people like that, and really, if people are going to do it properly and denounce Christianity, they have to take it to the top, and that would be the Pope, and it would be interesting to see how they get out of it. How are they going to justify the Trinity? The Archbishop of Canterbury, the Pope, they'll be avoiding it, because I know Ahmadinejad, who is this late Muslim speaker, trying to get an audience with the Pope, and the Pope was saying, I won't talk to you in public, I'll only discuss the matter of the Trinity with you in private. So we know that it's morally and intellectually indefensible. And now that everything is going wrong, you can home in for the kill. Or at least rabbis can do that, Islamic scholars can do that, but they are scared. They literally are too scared to do it.
Well, I think the intellectual approach of all the skeptics with their books that they wrote does offer a more elegant sort of like mental masturbation, a mutual mental masturbation exercise that it gets to be enjoyable, that you can get off on. At least if you're on the level of entertaining yourself in that way, because it's a personal pursuit for you to find out the true nature of who Jesus is, and now people have a lot of time on their hands on the, when most people are sedentary, they stay at home and watch TV or watch listen to YouTube or watch videos. And so what else are they going to do? Porn becomes boring after a while. and then you want some intellectual stimulation, and you're curious, and then you want answers to all the mysteries of history, the world's mysteries. And you can dish up the for the dummies, for the retards, a simple argument of Jesus is idolatry, and prove me wrong. But then there are the people that are semi-intelligent or semi-curious or curious, or they're intrigued, and they want some intellectual stimulation, and they go looking for the skeptics' proof of Jesus being a fabricated government psyop instrument.
There we go again. If you go too far and deny Jesus' existence, there will be huge resistance. But just to prove
I don't care.
Yeah, I know,
I don't
but it's harder to do, and I don't think it's necessary. All they say, well, he might have existed, he might, and the Muslims will say he did exist because he's mentioned in the holy book. But the point is, it's idolatry that should be concentrated on, and it's easy, well, for me anyway, to say, well, why idolatry has been harmful to Christians because
that can appeal to
nothing.
masses.
No rule
That could
to
appeal to
follow.
the sheep. That's fine for the sheep. That's a good argument to get the sheep to avoid the pitfall of falling into worshiping Jesus as God. That's fine by me. Most people are dumb. Most people want quick, explanations, and they don't want to dive deep and do the deep research. And unless they're forced to, unless they have no options left.
Yes, but the point is that for the Trinity, they have no defense. I mean, historically, they can say it was cooked up the Council of Nicaea.
Claire, I noticed it, but it doesn't make any difference to me, because you get the hucksters, the missionaries that are trained to come at me as a Jew, and they like to use sophisticated, or they think they are sophisticated arguments, employing sola scriptura, and having me accept that the New Testament has some historical validity or legitimacy, and they come at me from this standpoint where I have to argue with them.
Can you sum up the arguments that they use?
Oh, well, they use the New Testament gospel quotes as actual tools for argumentation and debate, having them being assumed, just with this kind of like a concession from me and from others that these are.
Can I be you?
No, wait. The concession here is that these books are based on history, true events, and therefore they have a leg up in using them to try to convince me that they are authoritative historical documents that actually pinpoint to Jesus being the fulfillment of what they call the Old Testament and the prophets.
But it's
and I'll say that I blow that out of the water by putting into question the historical validity of the Gospels.
Right.
And
I know, but okay. So they say, okay, the New Testament historical, written by the people, but all the New Testament does is testify that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John testify that they met a guy called Jesus. That's all it does, right? And Paul never met Jesus. Jesus was dead when Paul spread his idolatry around.
But there's more to say about this. Yeah, but that's not good enough for them. I put into question the identity of the authors. I put into, just like using Joseph Atwell's approach and Joseph Atwell's thesis and Joseph Atwell's thought process. And also, same goes for Valiant and all the other ones, proving that Christianity was a machination and a mechanical engineered movement from the first century, being led by the elites of their day, the globalists of their day, the imperialists of their day.
Yes.
Claiming to be Jews, claiming to be common, average, everyday people. They were fishermen, don't forget, Claire, they were Jewish fishermen that wrote the gospel.
It doesn't even matter, because we know there are Jewish heretics, because Jesus himself was convicted of heresy, wasn't he? Because he said his papa
Well,
was
these are all fraudulent stories
yes,
based on
but
a
even
attempt
on
to
their own terms, the
propagandize
story
the
doesn't
Jews.
work. Even
No,
on
it's
their
not.
own terms, the story doesn't work.
Okay, the literature itself doesn't work. The literature itself becomes
No,
self.
but have you read the Athanasian Creed? Have you read it?
What do you call that?
The Athanasian Creed.
I could care less. What is
Yeah,
it?
I know, but it's just ridiculous and absurd. But that is the basis of how they justify the Trinity. If you read it, you would laugh. And they don't even dare use it anymore. I've spoken to their priesthood, and they talk about the Athanasian Creed, but basically, the English have been laughing at Anglicanism for decades. They used to joke, but now they don't even bother making the joke because it's such an old joke now that surely you need to believe in God to be Archbishop of Canterbury. That's a joke that is decades old. And the current Archbishop of Canterbury, I noticed some years ago that he didn't even believe in the Trinity because he said this stupid thing. He was saying, "Ooh, sometimes I doubt the existence of God, but I'm sure that Jesus existed." That is their low level of theological knowledge in the birthplace of Anglicanism. They don't care. Nobody cares. It's sort of like Putin in 2019 pointing out that liberalism is obsolete. Did anybody care? Nobody cared. It was ho-hum. It's like somebody saying, "Oh, did you know that Jesus is dead?" It's like, well, I knew he was dead a long time ago. It's like some Hollywood famous person who's elderly and somebody said, "Oh, he's dead," and you probably think, "Oh, I thought he was dead ages ago."
Well, you know what? It brings to mind the same couple that I'd met in the riding back on the bus from the Dead Sea resorts to Jerusalem. The nice young British couple. We had also gotten to talking about the end times, signs of messianic, the Messiah. This was several years back, and this was all. The process was still heated. The process was still sort of bubbling up and being noticed by the world and by them as well. So I made a joke about the second coming. I'm sure the guy, the boyfriend of the girl I was sitting next to, understood that I was joking. Speaking from the Jewish perspective, I told him, we're looking forward to the second coming, and I got a good smile on his face, and he understood, and I understood. We both understood each other. Not that they were like committed believers in Christianity, but the girl was looking at me also like a little bit put off and scared. And I told her, "Don't worry, it's not going to be as bad as you think. It's not going to be the end of the world as far as a nuclear war and the end of the." She got frightened a little bit. I was trying to calm her down, and take it to mind that this is about 5-6 years back.
Frightened
And
of what? Sorry, frightened of what? Is my question.
Frightened of Armageddon, nuclear holocaust, total destruction of the human of planet Earth. That was a scenario that still was fresh on people's minds because of Kim Jong Il in North Korea at the time. And these things that just keep on reshifting and recycling themselves. The threat of total global thermonuclear war and annihilation just keep on becoming recurring themes over many years. It's not recent, so it's like we've gotten the creator.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm trying to say with these Christians is that they, I mean, the end times are going to come, or not. But the question is, these Christians, they can't defend themselves on the question of idolatry. I'm saying that not even the Pope, not even their most skilled theologian can do it.
All right.
And this is their problem. But we know how they always.
That's why Jordan Peterson is coming out and saying, "Well, I have to learn how to be a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim all at the same time."
Well, nobody said he could. Well, is it possible? How can you? It's like saying I have to be gas and water and ice at the same time. You know, he does talk a lot of nonsense, and because he's this big shot intellectual, people, you know, they don't call him out on it, but he does say a lot of these things because basically he knows he has to be Christian in order to be respectable, because if he ever showed any, you know, non-Christian or Christian critical position, he would get rocks thrown at him, you know. And there are political considerations like book deals and, you know, not wanting to upset his base, who would identify as Christian because that's all they ever knew. And unless you actually tell them what went wrong in their history, they don't even understand their own history. They don't know, you know, it's like, oh, the Reformation. It's like, did the Reformation succeed, or was it they just gave up on it. They gave up on Christianity and used liberalism, and that is also kaput. And they can't admit it because it's their sacred cows. You know,
we're trying to balance that. Yeah, I think your mission is to try to create some sort of a common sense, a decency balance in the culture that's decayed.
No,
okay,
I have to make them acknowledge that it's broken. Otherwise, they won't accept everything. They'll just limp on and say, "Ooh, we're Christian, we're liberal," and it's like most people don't believe in that. So we're pushing at a falling fence, and it exasperates me how inadequately so many people are doing it. You know, it's like, obviously liberalism is kaput because nobody cared when Putin in 2019 he gave this big shot interview in the FT. It's no less than the FT, and it was reported, you know, I think twice on the BBC, but nobody else cared. The only person who cared was late Rabbi Sachs, who thought, well, this is a terrible thing. The you know, conceptual idol of the Goyim it has been, you know, basically, you know, kicked by Putin, but actually they didn't care. The media didn't even bother defending it.
It's suicidal self-destruction, and they're like is whistling past the graveyard, or they're fiddling while Rome burns. All those expressions that apply to the West now, not just England, but most of the Western world.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, because what the politicians are doing don't even make sense, you know, in their own terms for the benefit of these politicians. They're doing all the things that caused revolution before. You know, Sri Lanka, you know, this is a prospect of Western nations when things get worse. You know, what's happened in Sri Lanka is going to happen again, and they're still going for it.
And read the article I just posted in the private chat. It's perfectly apt and very, very prescient to what you're talking about now. It is, you know, Germany is, it's not an exaggeration. Their gas has been completely shut off now. The Russians that use the excuse of maintenance on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. And, you know...
they have a hole in their head. You know, we are passengers in a coach whose driver is dead at the wheel. That's the best analogy I can think of.
Yeah, for sure.
And for some reason, things still work for now. And because things still work, it is, in theory, capable of correction, and therefore the message has to be pushed through, well, ruthlessly, because... Okay,
but you're shouting. You're shouting in the wind. You know that. You're shouting in the wind.
I mean, but anyway, nobody cares, or they think they can just keep ignoring things because they've ignored it for 2,000 years, right? They've been ignoring the truth for 2,000 years, so they think they can continue to get away with it. And maybe they don't care. Maybe they think, well, you know, if we die, we die because, well, you know, we've had our innings, and we're just going to destroy the world so nobody comes in after us and to say that we took over. You know, maybe they are as mad and evil as that.
Maybe, could be. It seems that way. They don't want to do the responsible thing and swallow their pride and move on and repair all the damage.
The people who are capable of being shamed would actually, in my view, be the immigrants. Because, you know, all these white people, you know, they were born here, they were born to it, you know, but it's these immigrants, these Muslims who crossed oceans and continents to come here. They might have some pride in it, like, well, we've heard of rats leaving a sinking ship, but we were rats clambering on board a sinking ship, and their DNA is going to be global homogenized. Did they just come here to have their descendants, incorporated into global homo? Was that the point of them coming to the West?
Oh, I saw that comment that our friend in Lebanon over there made. That woman from Lebanon stated that in Germany there was a mosque that flew the LGBTQ flag recently, and so now they're
Because
so now.
all this is because there are these unprincipled people who don't get it about idolatry. It's like these Muslims have all these rules, but in practice, they've kind of been told by Westerners is that, yeah, you can practice and believe in God in any way you like, but just don't get political. Don't take the verses in your Quran literally, or there will be trouble. And that has been basically implanted into their minds. Did you listen to that Ed Hussein thing that I showed? It was only half an hour, 34 minutes.
I didn't get a chance to. I was too busy with my bullshit, following all the things that my rabbi's been saying. Yesterday, I dropped off my son late in the evening, and I was listening to a live lecture of my rabbi saying that the Messiah is on the horizon and he's visible, and just giving people more reasons to be in a state of preparation and anticipation. And I could see all the signs of it as far as the hyperinflation that's developing around the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's written in John would know this. John Gischel would know this, that everything would become more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Everything would become more. It's written.
They are creating conditions for a revolution. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, let's overthrow us. I mean, when you think of the Allies fighting their stupid war, but particularly the British, they fought a war against Germany and they lost their world empire. What was that about? I mean, if I were British, if I had male family members,
collaborated with Hitler. They double crossed him. Hitler was an ally of the British monarchy until he wasn't.
Well, he wanted peace. He admired Britain. He was just saying, it's so wonderful. Well, I only want... And there was an element even of...
King Edward was real good friends with him, smiling at one another, shaking each other's hands, marching together.
Because it's already a feature of Christian Europe to be anti-Semitic. So it was kind of part of their culture to say anti-Semitic things. If you read any novel of Dickens, it's almost it's like saying witches are bad and Jews are cunning, whatever. But that was really the kind of default mindset of the average Christian in Europe when they took their religion seriously. So it was no big deal that Hitler exhibited his anti-Semitism when they think of the...
It wasn't just about anti-Semitism. They were in a league with one another to overthrow the Soviet Union, the Bolsheviks, the threat coming from the communists, from the Bolshevik Revolution.
Yeah, and Mosley had this idea of... I mean, he wanted to be friendly to Hitler because he... even way back then, they were having a problem with democracy. Really, fascism, Nazism was basically saying we don't want this system of government. It hasn't done us any good. That was basically what they were trying to say. I know it's not in the history books, but it was failing even then. For all countries who adopted that system, and it's still being forced on people. I mean, there is this chapter in Mein Kampf when Hitler basically said, in the Austrian Empire, the fact that the Austrians allowed it meant that the predominant German interests would always be subverted to get the minorities, be they Jews, be they Slovaks, be they Hungarian, whoever, some kind of minority, because that is how you would get them to vote for you, by giving them stuff. and that would ultimately subvert the German interest, the dominant group. And this is the same of, well, whatever race you are, you have to keep, and of course the biggest group of all, once you had female suffrage, was the female voter, and all political parties, pander to them in order to get, because everybody knows that if you get the female voter on your side, you win the election, and that's what they keep doing. But of course they blame the Jews, but actually it's the female voter that all these political parties have been pandering to, and they can't acknowledge.
Well, yeah, it was part of Hitler's doctrine to what he said, and what I think it was his propaganda minister said it, Goebbels. He said, first you get the women, then you get the children, then you get the men. You have to go by way of the women.
Yeah, because the men follow the women. They will follow the women into the mosque, the church, the whorehouse. I mean, wherever the women go, the men have to follow.
The battlefield, the war. If women sort of like urge their men to actually, women were patriotic and wanted their men fighting and being, patriots.
Well, the white feather, given by women to men who hadn't conscripted. I mean, signed up for the First World War. I mean, that was a terrible thing, but I guess it worked because it was a kind of it get them to sign up to die in the trenches for nothing at all.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Looking back on things in retrospect, having like 20/20 vision in retrospect, if I happened to find myself in Western Europe during the time of the First World War as a Jew, having to choose between nations, like let's say I was a French citizen, and I had to be conscripted to fight in the trenches against the Germans in the Somme or somewhere like that. And knowing that there are Jewish Germans on the other side as my opponents, as my enemies, that I'd have to shoot and kill, they didn't really think this way. The so-called sophisticated Western European Jews that had adopted their host nations, host Christian nations. Me being somewhat still normal and sane and having common sense, I would pick up and leave. I would not have stayed in any country in Western Europe that would have required of me to go fight potential other Jews that were, potential opponents that would be Jews that are, citizens of the enemy country that I'd have to fight during the war. And that happened.
The professional soldier was a different thing. I mean, you may have heard of this football game between the Germans and the British. That they had this football game on Christmas Day, and then the next day they returned to shooting and killing each other. And I don't know how much.
No, but for me, being an Israeli-born Jew, being born into the Jewish state. And being able to look back on a period of time before the Jewish state was established, I could see how the Jews of Europe had been so compromised that they swore allegiance to their host nations, the Christian Catholic host nations that they were adopted by, regardless of whether it was hundreds of years or even longer. The Christians never saw the Jews as equal citizens. The Jews never that were still traditional or religious or normal or sort of like a faithful. Never saw themselves as Germans first or French first. They always saw themselves as Jewish first. The real failure of the Jews prior to the founding of the State of Israel in Europe was when they began to see themselves as Germans first, or as French first,
of the Jews,
or Hungarians first, or British first, and that was their downfall. They started assimilating. They started, willfully, being conscripted into those militaries, or they served in those militaries, and they killed one another in the battlefields of Europe's imperialistic wars, the First World War. And that to me is like so aberrant, and it was aberrant to the Creator. It was it's like that is leaving God. God is always a constant. God is a constant. He never turns away from you. He never leaves you.
God set principles of warfare and
Jews turned away from God. The Jews turned away from themselves and their faith when they compromised with a European citizenship and European emancipation and European acceptance of them as equal citizens. And that is what tempted them, and that was their downfall. And it included the Jews of Eastern Europe, the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, the shtetls, because the Reform movement was also strong in Eastern Europe, and it created a lot of strife, and it created a lot of baseless hatred amongst Jews. It was what was the sort of like the wedge. It's the wedge that got between the Jews, the social reforms, and the religious reforms, and the different outlook on being part of Europe as Europeans, full European citizens. And they can't deny that. They can't bury that. They can't sugarcoat that. They can't snow that. They can't snow us as far as minimizing that or pretending like that wasn't what it was the decider. That wasn't so crucial in the eyes of the Creator, in God's mind. Is saying that they have left me. I didn't leave them. They turned away from me. They're the ones that are giving me the cold shoulder. They're turning their in Hebrew we say makshe oref, not makshe oref. He didn't harden his it's like a stiff neck, but it's ifnei gav. He turned his back, or he turned his face away. Hestir panim. Hestir panim. They say some people in the religious communities, they say that Hashem hestir panim. He hid his face. It's not the case. No. The Jews got so confused by their being tempted to be a part of Europe, whether in Eastern Europe or Western Europe, and all the different arguments that were going back and forth, that they had actually turned their face away from the Creator. They were too busy bickering with one another. They were too busy
in imperialism, though, because
they were too busy being loyal citizens to Europe and to European countries, yes, to France, to Germany, or to Russia. The Bolsheviks were atheistic Jews, a lot of them, that had completely surrendered on faith and on God. They became atheists, and that also sort of like bled into Germany as well. Bolshevism,
yes,
and communism.
Because people would understandably wonder to themselves, what is in my best interest? To advance in life, do I stick to the principles of my religion, or do I please my masters? And my masters are my government. And we've reached pleased with me.
We've reached the end stage of this process playing itself out again in the United States and in Canada and in Europe again. All right, whether they learned their lessons from the Holocaust or not, it doesn't matter. They have now put themselves in a very similar situation, having repeated that cycle and that process over again, despite the existence of the Jewish state, despite the lessons, the harsh lessons that they should have learned from the Holocaust. American Jews are no different than Europe's Jews prior to the Holocaust. They have committed
because they're more loyal to America or whatever country that they grew up in, because our identity is also the country we were born in.
Right.
We associate our memories of childhood, etc.
I've managed to work through that because I'm loyal to my not just a heritage and people. I'm loyal to my calling. I'm not the most observant. I'm a lazy, not so observant. I keep kosher. I try not to screw around with the non-Jewish women. Sometimes I get tempted. I'm not 100% kosher, but I am loyal to my heritage and my inheritance and my the number one primary sort of code.
The question arises about what
because I was born in Israel. It's easier for me. I feel more. Even Jews abroad, and all Jews say this. Jews that are born in Israel, whether they're religious or not religious, they have more of an advantage. They have an anchor to the Jewish identity, to the Jewish state. and they find it less difficult to be loyal to being a Jew, to be loyal to our history, loyal to our strife and struggle throughout history, and we don't get so tempted to want to fit in other countries. Some Israelis do, but a majority of Israelis born here in Israel, whether they're religious or not, there's an ingrained sort of loyalty to being a Jew. In New York, in America, it's been withered away.
But whatever your loyalties and wherever you were born, surely the most important identity that we ought to have, if we want to be honest, rational, and decent people, is moral principles. And when we know that our government is doing everything that it is against decent moral values and would allow your society to survive, then we ought to question it. I'm sure you were saying that you felt there was something wrong, there was something rotten in the state of America, and you fled from it. But it's kind of followed you to Israel because because of the global reach of the American empire, and it is Western. The problem is a Western one because of the universal nature of Christianity and its three global empires, and when Christianity went, liberalism replaced it, and I'm saying now that liberalism is going, something better can replace liberalism, and it's already here. But of course, that's going to be a bit difficult for them to accept. But it's simple. The narrative is simple. They may hate it, but they understand it immediately.
The stiff-necked resistance to want to face the truth or look themselves in the mirror, which is what they refuse to do. And what you're proposing is the ready-made option for them, which is distasteful to them and abhorrent. They will never even consider it. They'll never even entertain it.
They are saying we would rather die, but
So for me, again, we go back to this back and forth. I believe that it's the hand of God that will offer the solution in a forced and authoritarian way, and that's where I see it going. We don't see eye to eye on that, fine. But at least I'll agree with you that, I do believe in universal moral principles that for all people to follow. And when they begin to degenerate, it's not about me trying to protect my Jewish identity and fleeing and running away from it, having it only pursue me here and chase me here with the same kind of phenomena, the same kind of behavior, the same kind of sort of circumstances that make my life difficult because I can't deal with it, I can't live with it. Can't stand it.
It's poison. All the
things you talk about are absolutely 100% in Israel. We do have in the secular society here matriarchy and matriarchal dominance over the culture, and it's really putting the brakes on everything. It's like throwing a wrench into the works. It makes everything far more difficult than it should be.
Well, it makes gender relations toxic. It stops people from bonding, men and women from bonding each other in order to have a stable relationship in which to bring up the next generation. And if you don't do it properly, the next generation will be stupid and crazy and degenerate.
The only man that actually can say that it's almost impossible to say that there are some tranquil, calm relationships and people that really get along. Women have really gotten full of themselves and stuck up here, even as successful married women with children in households. But I think the only men that really benefit from the matriarchy are really rich and well-off men with resources. That Jewish Israeli women or Jewish women in general are behave like most female prostitutes, and you buy their silence. It's like in Hebrew we say zona im teuda, like a hooker with a license. That's a married woman. So zona im teuda. So you purchase her silence with materialism, with money, with financial security. So some men that are lucky enough to have financial security can keep their women not on a short leash, but they can keep them pacified. They throw the wild dog a bone so that so that they don't bark at their men all the time, and the bone being the money, the bone being the financial security. That's how base the relationships are here. In even with them amongst the religious women are somewhat more sensible and chaste, and they, because of their faith, maybe because of their upbringing, they do actually compromise and support their men without demanding all the riches of the world, or the bone of the pacifying bone of money and financial security, and a big dong, a big bone in their butts also is a pacifier that keeps them satisfied. But hookers with licenses, marriage licenses. That's how based it is. That's how it's just it puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth. My mother's generation, my aunts and uncles' generation, some I see their marriages. Some of them are successful. There's a bonding there because they didn't have to go through this episode of how would you deem it, matriarchy or intersectionality, whatever it is. And now we're stuck with it. I see myself as I delayed marriage, and I didn't, for all the reasons that others in the West delay marriage, and you end up paying. But analyzing it, deconstructing it, and making sense of it, only makes me want to. It only makes me desire messianic revelation even more, because my rabbi even said this, that the women, he mentioned this specifically. The Messiah is being sent to the world. God is sending the Messiah because women have gotten out of hand.
But it can be solved just by changing the rules, by the collective will of men to change the rules. But they won't do it because they're not interested in changing the rules of marriage. They won't even talk about abolishing no-fault divorce.
Well,
they can't be bothered to do that because they can get sex without marriage.
I listened to my rabbi. I listened to him, religiously. I could say, if there's anything I do religiously, if there's anything, I'm kind of lazy as far as practicing Judaism to its fullest. But if there's anything I do in a dedicated and religious way, is I listen to everything that man has to say, every update, every word. And I know he's associating it to our current circumstances, and I know that what's building is, God's intervention, divine intervention.
But I know you assume that's going to happen, but I'm saying, we have tools at our hand, at our fingertips, but which we refuse to use because of all these attitudes. It's like,
but all I see you in this constant repetition of bringing up the solutions and bringing up.
Yes, because you have no plan B. You have no plan B. Everything is plan A.
I mean, it's like you're really pissing in the wind. You're shouting in the wind because these people are not adept. They're not willing.
I know they are degenerates and they would rather die.
So repeating the solution as far as your ready-made solutions
is not all degenerate.
For me, it's pointless.
Unmarriageable.
No. For me, it's pointless to continue repeating the gripes.
You repeat.
It's not going to solve it. It's not going to solve anything when these people refuse to even lend an ear to this to your argumentation.
These people know my shtick. I mean, if they were rewarded, they could repeat it in their sleep. But they don't, because they are losers with no connections. And this is what
this is the majority. But you're dealing with the majority. These are you can call.
Yes, but
you can call them normies. You can call them whatever you want to call them.
But because they won't acknowledge that Christianity is kaput, or nobody would care if they said it, because they are losers and larpers who have no connections. But what about the people above them?
criticizing and putting them down is not going to solve the problem.
Well, praising them. I mean, what's the point of pandering to losers and lobbers?
No, we shouldn't pander to them. We understand their situation. I say the
mentally
solution.
ill. They can't stick to anything.
Well, I say the situation is not completely hopeless. I say the solution. Why would I invest so much time? Why would I be so religiously committed to listening to my rabbi? Why would I be so religiously dedicated? Because I see years worth of evidence, years worth of corroboration. It's not because I'm assuming things or how did you state it? How did you phrase it? Not assuming that you just said it now. That somehow it's for me it's like a wishful thinking or something. For me, it's in my mind, in my conviction, it's an absolute guarantee. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
I know, and you have no plan B, and that's what I'm saying. And I'm saying I have accepted.
I don't need a plan B. For me, I don't need to. I learned that interacting with a lot of these people can be counterproductive and can be frustrating, even though I'm proposing it's not my solution, it's God's solution. It's the prophetic end times Jewish solution to all the faults and injustices of the world. And for me, it's not about me proposing these solutions. I'm just a witness.
The book I'm relying on.
I'm a witness to what's happening. I'm not just an observer. I'm a participant, and I'm repeating the warnings that God will get involved directly and in a revealed way. And all the signs are there, and it's clear on its face. It's written in our, not just in bold faced in the prophets. It's written in the commentaries on everything that we're all the
I know what you always say, Sam. But
say what?
I know what you say about the Messiah.
For me, it's like a self. It's like a sort of like a self-defeating sort of. A exhausting sort of endeavor to constantly analyze.
Said about you.
Yeah, all right, but I'm in a forward progressing sort of mode where there is an end point, there is a goal, there is
the end point is either resolution or destruction.
Right, and I see both happening. I see destruction of the old world, the world of evil, a resolution for the people that anticipated messianic revelation and God's direct involvement and intervention. Their hopes will be resolved. Their anticipation towards God
or they won't do it, and it will just end terribly for them. And they have been warned. They will. It will end terribly
for. I'll tell you who it'll end terribly for. It will end terribly for the entire world, aside from the Jewish state, for Israel, for the Jews living in Israel.
Right. I know that is your belief.
But what will have to happen?
I have a practical solution. I actually have a practical solution. It doesn't matter if people are just too degenerate to use it because they would rather die. Could it be that in the entire global empire, most people would just rather die? Possibly. But I just feel it is my duty to keep repeating the option of
well, you know what happened?
That might be pleasing both to God and to humanity.
You know what happened? Despite the fact that there were several nonstop loud vociferous warnings during the crash of 2008, 2009, people that were in the housing market that had invested so much in their homes and they lost everything. Men household that were leaders, not leaders. I would say like the men of the house in a lot of these men of in these Asian or I'm thinking of like the old in California there were like a lot of incidents of like not just like Filipino men, Asian men, Chinese, Japanese, very proud Asian men that were still men of the household, rulers of the home, the heads of the house, having lost everything and having become totally psychotic at having lost everything, the values of their homes, they gotten into debt, they lost all their savings, they lost everything. They committed a mass suicide on their families. There were several incidences where they took the lives of their children, they killed their wives, and then they committed suicide.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so you've heard these stories, right?
Yes. I mean, it happens to white people too. I mean, there was a spate of these killings. So I mean, maybe that's
There's for a lot of them. There's no way to preempt this. They're on a path.
There are peaceful ways, but I mean, because everybody's just so completely, atomized. I mean, there is no, they have no leaders. These people have no leaders. I mean, look at the alt-right. They're the complete losers. Well, they think Richard Spencer is their leader, and if not him, who else? You see these people, and you think that they're working everything out from scratch. They have no advice from the older generation because they have no religion and they have no contact with their
fathers. That made mention of this also, of everything being... it was Lionel. Oh, you know what? I want to play something from you from an American Jew, which I don't see things eye to eye with because he's still there. But he was talking exactly the same way you're talking now, and he put it into his kind of descriptor of it. I think it's worth listening because he's just going to reinforce what you're saying, and that's what came to mind. And give me a second. I'll find it. It was just from yesterday, and it caught my eye. Here. There are no more true liberals and conservatives left. Let's listen to his opening statements and arguments. He was a regular on RT as well. Maybe you're familiar with him.
Lionel, yes, I've heard of him. He's quite loudmouthed and angry. That one?
Yeah, that guy. The Jewish guy with the spectacles,
I won't be able to share screen because my computer lacks the processing power, but... you'll be able you won't be able to hear it yourself, I'm afraid.
Oh, all right, just play it. Go ahead, play it. I'll mute.
There isn't a day that goes by when I don't cringe over the notion of somebody using the term liberal and conservative and progressive and commie and Marxist. And I'm thinking to myself, what parallel universe do they live in? What are they talking about? Conservatives? I've been having a problem with a Democrat and Republican. Labels mean nothing. You're using your father's political nomenclature. These words don't mean anything. The concepts don't mean anything. I'm going to explain specifically why they mean nothing and why you should stop immediately using these archaic, antediluvian, otiose, hoary, and basically these anachronistic terms that explain nothing. But first, a word from our sponsor. You're more likely to have your data compromised than ever. In 2020 alone, 500,000 user accounts belonging to a popular video conferencing app were stolen and sold on the deep web. Usernames and passwords were sold for as low as a penny. Tech experts believe the number of stolen accounts could be in the millions in the future. Relying on big tech companies to protect you is no longer an option. Hackers, ISPs, advertisers, and government agencies all want a piece of your information. Virtual Shield is a no-log VPN that helps you protect your private data from hackers with the flick of a button. Data like your ID, social security number, bank accounts, and medical history. Protecting yourself takes seconds and works on all of your devices. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to take control of your privacy, and Virtual Shield helps make that possible. Try Virtual Shield risk-free for 30 days and receive 50% off for life. Yes, 50% off for life by going to virtualshield.com/Lionel. Browse the web safely and anonymously starting today. Go to virtualshield.com/Lionel. I started professional talk radio I guess you might want to call it professional talk radio, in 1988. And this was right around the time, that Rush Limbaugh was coming along. God bless him, a great guy, did a lot for radio and entertainment. But he coined this term, not coined, pardon me, he didn't coin it, it was coined before, but he drove it into our vocabulary and vernacular like nothing else when he kept talking about liberals. The liberals this and the liberals that, and the liberals it's a mental illness, and the liberals, oh my God, the liberals. Like, what the hell are you talking about? The liberals, there are no liberals. What do you mean? What liberals? And what it meant was the people, usually Democratic, who were lily-livered, spineless, impuissant, who liked things like, tree hugging, and they wore Birkenstocks, and they were hippies, and they ate granola, and just prototypical nonsense that they were pro-abortion and actually, they were mild. During the Rush years, Ted Kennedy was considered the Antichrist, so to speak. Jane Fonda, of course, and Susan Sarandon, and the usual suspects. But look at them now. A lot of what these people said, I agree with, and you might agree with too. Look at them now, and look at how using these terms are beyond anachronistic. What we have today is something that defies any kind of, nomenclature, descriptive. I don't know what the word is. I don't know how to explain this. I'm not sure what you call this. And if you insist upon labels, if that's your thing, woke, anarchic, nihilistic, radical left, what? I don't know. It doesn't apply. It's not Joe Biden. It's not the Democratic Party. It's not progressives. It's not liberals. That's not it. This movement today infected this ostensible party like a parasite, like a zombie, like some kind of an invading, spirit that took over this group, and now is spreading and perpetuating and disseminating and broadcasting things that I can't for the life of me understand. What does this have to do with anything? And what's even more important, the prototypical, actual, venerable, established Democrats and liberals and progressives have nothing to do with this. They don't know what to make out of this. They don't know what to make out of this nonsense. Nothing. They have no clue. They don't.
Is he about through there, Claire, or has he gotten most
really
of his points across, right?
Is when you start talking.
Only not even halfway through, but I get the idea. He's basically saying that liberalism and conservatism don't mean anything anymore, right?
Correct.
And I'm saying that they can't mean anything because they were never written down. There has never been an official handbook for either liberalism or conservatism, and conservatism was always a defensive ideology to say, hey, liberals, enough already, and that's all it was, and there are no, they don't have any principles, they can't articulate their feelings rather than we don't like too much change, and family and marriage, and now conservatism in Britain means legalizing gay marriage, which happened under a conservative prime minister. So it means nothing. It's totally bankrupt, and they can't keep a handle on things because it was never written down properly, and the only ideologies, if you want to call them that, is through divine scripture. Which is what.
Also, I recall that people are on the same kind of frequency now, because it was also Paul Joseph Watson has made the same exact argument in one of his latest videos as well, about how the two-party system, or the major parties in England, not the two-party system, they're basically indistinguishable from one another at this point.
It's a corrupt cartel. It's an oligarchy. They carve up the market between themselves and keep new competitors out of the market, and they can do it easily because the stupid voter will always look on voting as a bet on a horse. They
Right.
feel that they wasted their time if they voted for the party that didn't win. So they will always vote for the most likely winner, and this is the basis of game theory, Sam.
Right.
And game theory is predicting how badly people are going to behave, and this is what our politicians, our ruling classes, run on. There's this
Well,
idea
what? There's an element of that here as well in Israel, but people
it's a race
here
to the
are,
bottom.
yeah.
And this has got to be explained to people, or they won't get it. And the alt-right are not listening. The dissident right are basically keener to promote their super chats and their channels, and they don't discuss anything that their subscribers don't like. So basically, they are run on the same principles as mainstream media. Their advertisers, whoever threatens them, whoever rewards them with advertising, who cares about the truth? Who cares about analysing the news? They don't care. And
Right.
this is how low they are. And I'm talking about the dissident right. That's why they ignore me. They collectively they conspire to ignore me. They know who I am. I've met most of them.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? Even the noble people that want to do the right thing in America are teaming up with one another and trying to, dictate change. You know what? I've heard from a lot of them recently, because I listen to the people that are fans of Infowars, Owen Schroyer and Alex Jones, and these are musicians, hard rock musicians that are trying to do politics. And even yesterday, Owen Schroyer said it himself. It's like the only way to get rid of these parasites, the only way to get rid of this entrenched deep state, establishment is to go through. They were saying that it's like Samson. They're saying Russia, fucking bomb us already. Let's get it on. Let's get on with the show. Let's get on with the transition phase when these people are vulnerable, and the majority of the public will wake up to their being such chumps, such puppets, such a controlled subjects, that they'll finally live up to the fact that they are not free. They're not free people. That they're very controlled, and that it is leading to their final end, to their doom.
Yeah.
And once we reach to that point, when it's about fight or flight, those that are dedicated to want to live in America, to being Americans, will fight. Those that are not will run away. Well, there'll be a flight away from the United States. There'll be a mass exodus, also out of Europe, for those that don't feel any loyalty to Europe. So that's where I see, God's hand being involved. It's already involved, but that's the future prospect for the Jews living in the exile in the diaspora. Again, I take it back to the Jews. I hate to do that, to be so one-minded, single-minded about my mission and what God's mission is. That's how it's going to play itself out. A lot of the Jews don't feel 100% loyal to their host nations. Once those host nations' populations turn on them, they'll have more of an incentive to leave, and that's what's going to happen. No matter how patriotic they want to seem, wearing American flag hats like Mel K and others, that are very waving the flag and rah rah rah, that'll all get blown wide open. It'll get blown sky high, and they'll be retreating. It'll be a fight or flight, and then you'll have the hardcore bitter Klinger Americans that have been there for since the time of the founding of the country and before. They have multi-generational roots in the United States, and that they feel committed to fighting for the place because that's their home. That's the earth that they've planted their roots in, and And those are the people that will die to the death. Will fight to. Will sorry, not die to fight to the death. A lot of people won't be willing to commit to the death to defend a country that has been so utterly destabilized and decayed, and all their comforts go flying out the way. Again, they're armchair
Sam, I have to
patriots.
go.
All right, but we're talking about armchair patriots.
Yes.
People that are dedicated will fight to the death. Those that aren't will flee. That's the future that I'm forecasting.
Yeah, and I'm saying, wherever you are, it's all over the world. There is nowhere to go if you're a Gentile, and you might as well find some principles and defend
Yeah.
them. If you have
For the Jews, you make your stand in Israel because that's your only safe place. That's what I'm repeating my rabbi's message. There's no other place for you. This is God's will.
Okay.
Anyway, so it was nice talking to you.
Okay.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.